All right. Hi, I am Teresa Coates. I am the National Educator for Shannon Fabrics, and today we are here on our Sew Together Tuesday tour. We are in Decorah, Iowa at the Red Roxy Quilt Co shop. So yay! We are here with a live audience, which is super fun, and I'm really excited to be here with the owners, who are Jess and Roxanne. So come on in, guys. So they are the owners for Red Roxy. And how long, you guys bought this shop, correct? Mm-hmm. So how long have you had it?
8.5 years.
8.5 years. So what made you buy a quilt shop with your mom?
Completely going out on a branch limb, right?
Yeah.
So, but here we are.
Here you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because, one, it's like a cool partnership to be like mom and daughter. I think it's interesting, but there are a lot of quilt shops that people have bought. I think it's super fascinating to do. So it's been good. You guys have been here a long time, doing well. You were just in what? You were awarded with something?
Quilt Sampler Magazine. We were featured as a top 10 shop this year in North America. And that magazine just came out in May.
And so can they get a copy through you?
They can certainly get a copy
and
from
we'll
us.
sign it. And we'll sign it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, now I need to get one too then, because I haven't gotten one yet. Okay, so tell us your website. Where can they find you?
Our website is Red Roxy with a Y quiltco.com.
Okay, good. And you are in Northeast Iowa, not Northwest.
Beautiful,
Northeast.
Beautiful Northeast Iowa. As you said, if you think Iowa's flat, come to Northeast Iowa.
Yeah, it's beautiful here, beautiful. So this is my third visit, is that what we figured out?
Yes,
third visit here. So I love this shop, I love this area. So anytime they want me to come back, I'm like, I'm coming, I'm here.
Or you just tell us you're coming.
Yeah, exactly. Totally, exactly. I'm like, hello, can I come? Yes. Okay, cool. So we are here at Red Roxy. They have a great shop. About how many square foot? Do you know?
3,500.
3,500 square feet. So it's a really nice shop. It has a little classroom here and a whole cuddle section, which we'll show you at the end. Okay, we'll go over there. You got your new stuff out on the shelves?
Out on the shelves,
the
and
gnomes
on the
are
website.
up front.
So
okay, we'll have to get those too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a little walkthrough at the end and show all about the store. Okay, all right. So let's start. So today we are doing a special video that one that has been often requested, and one that we did at the very beginning of when we started doing Sew Together Tuesdays, like before it was a regular thing. We did the 7 tips for working with Cuddle Minky, and then I wanted to redo it because that was a long time ago and I was not very good at doing videos then. So we are better now, and we're doing 10 tips. So I have 3 additional tips that we've added to it. We have 10 tips today to work through it. So if you are new at working with Cuddle Minky, then this is going to be the show for you. So we're going to talk all about what you need to do, okay? All right, so first of all, let's talk just a brief second about what Cuddle Minky is. So Cuddle is a kind of Minky. Minky is a type of fabric like a denim, cotton, canvas, that sort of thing. It's just a type of fabric that's a plush. It's a microfiber plush. It's 100% polyester and it's a knit fabric. So that's what we're working with. Cuddle is a brand of it that Shannon Fabrics produces, and we take great pride in having the best Minky that is out there. So the quality is superior to all the others, and we love it. So there are some certain ways of working with it, whether it's cutting it, sewing it, all of that good stuff that will make it much easier to work with. Okay, so we have 2 kinds of Cuddle. There's Luxe Cuddle and regular Cuddle, or Cuddle 3. So I'm going to show you those. You can zoom in here real quick. Okay, so here are 2, look, I have Christmas colors because we had Christmas in July a couple weeks ago. So I'm ready for Christmas. So this is Cuddle 3. This is a 3mm nap Cuddle. So it's just got tiny, see if we can get the side of it there. It's just a tiny little nap, okay? Super easy to work with. It's just a little bit different. The biggest thing to remember is that it's polyester, and it is 100% polyester, and it's a knit fabric. So that makes it different to work with. The thing about Cuddle 3 is you'll notice that if I pet down, it smooths. If I pet back up, it does a little ridge thing. So that's the nap. And that's one of the things, or one of the ways that you can actually tell that it's a better quality of Minky, is because it'll have that real division of which way the nap goes. Okay. The other is Cuddle, Luxe Cuddle, and it's a longer napped fabric. Let's see if we can get the edge to come up on that too. Okay, and you can see that's much, much longer nap, and it's a little bit different to work with because of that. Okay, so we have hundreds of different Luxe Cuddles, and they will be different in the nap. So this one, it's a little bit harder to tell which way the nap is going because it's longer and kind of swishes around. This is our hide fabric. Okay, so we have those kinds of Cuddle. when you have that difference of which cuddle is which, then you're going to know a little bit more about how you're going to tackle it. So cutting it is different between the two. So for a cuddle 3, you can totally just use a rotary cutter and it's absolutely fine. So let me show you how I just do that. I'm just going to whack a piece off. Okay. And I'm just going to cut it with my rotary cutter, just 45 millimeter rotary cutter. I'm just going to cut right across here. Okay. Of course, I had a little blip in there, but you can see there's really relatively no mess at all. If I cut this direction, we'll get a little bit more mess. Okay. And I say that, and then there we go. There's some mess. I got some. Whew. Okay. So there's our little cuddle dust that we get from cutting it. And that's because the nap is going this direction. So what I've done is I cut the nap that was going over my line. Okay. So there's a little bit of mess. Not too bad. With the Luxe Cuddle, because it's a longer nap and it's a finer kind of fiber that's in there, it's going to be messier. So we want to cut it with, we want to mark it and then we cut it. So let me show you how we do that. So I'm going to mark it first. We have a few different varieties of ways to mark it. I'm just going to throw all my pens over here. Okay. And I kind of conflated the two tips, but that's all right. Okay, and this is a new little chalk marker that I got. So you can mark it with any of these things. So this is just a water-soluble Crayola marker. This is a friction felt tip pen, a silver Sharpie, a black Sharpie, and this is a marking pencil, it says. But I think it's like a chalky sort of thing, but it irons off. Okay, and this works really well. So these are the ones that you want to use for dark fabrics, and these are the ones that you can use for all the other ones. If it's a black background, you need to have something lighter, basically, that you can see it on. Okay, I'm going to show you with my Sharpie, because look, it has a cute little logo on it. How adorable is that? Okay, grab my ruler that is in my bag still. I was trying to get a smaller one, but let's go for big. Okay. All right. I got the biggest ruler I could possibly find. Mostly because I didn't want to take one out of a wrapping to do it. All right. So when we're working with Cuddle Minky, one of the things that people want to do is that they want to just cut it out and try to get a square. Because it's a knit fabric, it's going to keep moving around on you. So if I try to cut here and then I try to move this and try to get it settled again, if I'm working with a big piece, you can see it's going to wrinkle, and on a large piece, that's going to get exaggerated. So the first thing I want to do is I really want to mark my lines for it. So if I'm going to do a square, I'm going to mark my square corner with my ruler first. Okay, and this is just with a Sharpie. Okay, now I've marked it. Now if I cut this with the rotary cutter, it's going to cut all of the fibers that go across this line. So it's going to make a huge mess. So you can do it two different ways. It will be less messy. I'll show you one direction. These are my little scissors. So these are Karen K. Buckley scissors. They have these here at the shop. They're super good scissors. They're micro-serrated. I really like the handle size, so I have Femoris that are similar that have big handles, and that big handle thing is super important. So the big handle and the micro-serration are really the important parts there. See if we can get that. Look at that. Beautiful. Some good micro-serration there. All right, so when I cut this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it basically behind the backing, and I'm just going to snip along this edge. Okay, and I'm just going to cut the backing. And what that does is it cuts the back of the fabric and not so much of the fibers on the front. So if I take these little snips here. Mm-hmm. Yep. So when I do it like this, you can see it's left all of this here. Okay, so all of that nap, do you see that hung on there? Okay, and then all of it is here. So let me show it up so they can see it here. So you can see like this is all hung on. Okay, so it doesn't make a mess at all. Show my table, it doesn't make any mess. It's great. I love it. Okay, so now I'm going to use the other tool that I love, is the Olfa SAC-1 blade craft knife. What do they call it on the box here? They call it a snap-off knife. Okay, so that's the way these look. They're super great, and I really like it because it has a nice point, and then these have little snap-off blades. So if you look, it has, I think there's like 8 or something on the actual thing when you get it. So you can see the little snap off parts, which are great. So you can use this forever. You just buy replacement blades. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the end here and I'm going to drag this right along here. And I'm just going to hold some tension on it. Okay, see, go back to the beginning and get that part. Okay, so once I pull that apart, it's the same deal. There's hardly any mess at all. Okay, and it just clings. Hold it up again. Okay, so it really just clings to it. So now if I hold it and I pull it, I can get some mess off of it, but it's really pretty minimal. All right, so for me, the big thing is making sure that I'm cutting it in a way that is going to be less messy than it could be. So if I cut that with a rotary cutter, it's going to be mess everywhere. The first little while that I worked with the fabric, that's totally what I did, and the mess was super frustrating for me. So I had to figure out a different way. So the reason I actually came up with using the knife for the back of it is I realized it was kind of like faux fur or like working with the fur fabric. And if I can cut just the backing, I will have less mess. So that's what I did. Totally works. So I guess it's tip number 2. So tip number 1 is to mark your fabric. Tip number 2 is to cut it with the right tool. So Cuddle 3, we want to cut with a rotary cutter. And then Luxe Cuddle, we want to cut it with a blade or scissors. You can absolutely cut it with a rotary cutter. Just know that you're going to have more mess. So if you're going to cut it with a rotary cutter, I suggest that you vacuum the edges right away. Okay, so that's the 3rd tip. Is that where we are? 3rd is cleaning up the mess before you get to the sewing machine. So one of the things that we get questions about is people are like, well, does it ruin your sewing machine? It doesn't, because you're cleaning off the mess before you get to your sewing machine. So don't ever cut it and then drag it immediately to the sewing machine because you're losing fibers. You don't want to put those fibers into your bobbin case. You want to clean it first, okay? So my tip is that you're always going to vacuum the edges after you cut it, because that will get a bunch of the Cuddle dust off. And then the next thing you're going to do is take a wet washcloth. I have my washcloth somewhere. Here it is. Just a regular old washcloth. You're going to get it a little bit damp. If you use this to clean up your table, you can just get it damp, wipe down your cutting mat, throw this and all of your cut pieces into the dryer. You're going to let them tumble around in the dryer for just a few minutes. I like to do it for 2 or 3 minutes. Then I take it out. I clean out my lint trap. I let it tumble around for a little bit more. And by the time the lint trap is clean and not giving me any more Cuddle dust after that, then I can take it out and I can start sewing with it then. Once it has that initial shed done, it will not continue to shed. So that's one of the things that we take a lot of pride on with our Minky, is it will not continue to shed. It's just the one time where you've cut all of those little fibers, then it will be done, okay? All right, so let me get these little guys out of my way so we can keep going. I'm gonna get my tip sheet in my sight line here, okay? All right, so let me give these a good shake, because that's the other way I like to get some of that stuff off. Sorry guys, we'll clean it up later. Like, now we know what your studio looks like. It's a mess. I know. The little shake works really well too. The other thing with Cuddle 3, I didn't show it, is the other way that I clean off the edges is after I cut it, you can just flick it. Now see there, I can get more. And I just flick it. And then you get a little Cuddle dust off.
And what don't you do?
You don't blow it.
You don't pull it.
Oh, don't pull it, yeah.
Right, because then what happens to the edges?
Because then it curls, exactly. So yeah, when you're doing this, so that's something definitely people want to do, is when you have this little piece and I've cut it, then people want to, this is the wrong direction so it won't curl as much, but they want to pull it. They want to pull it. This is lengthwise, so it's not going to do it, but here is here's my widthwise piece. So if this were, say, my binding, and I wanted to cut my binding and do it that way, and then I would cut it widthwise, and if I pull this, it totally starts to curl. So that's what people like to do, is they like to pull it and get all that mess off, and then pretty soon you just have a little curly bit, which is not as fun. So,
or as easy to sew.
Or as easy to sew. So try to avoid doing that. Get rid of the mess easily, vacuum the edges, throw it in the dryer, and you're good to go. Okay, but you always want to do that before you start sewing. I see a question back there.
When you throw it in the dryer, low heat, no heat, high heat?
Right, so the question was, what kind of heat do you use for when you throw it into the dryer? And yes, that is important. You want a no heat or a low heat dryer. So if your dryer will go to no heat, that's perfect. Because all you're trying to do is to get it to like blonk around in there. That's not really a word, but you know what I mean. I make up words all the time. Like, you just want it to, like, yeah, flip around in the dryer, and that wet washcloth is actually going to create some weight that will kind of blonk it around better. So it'll end up like going around in your dryer a little bit better and knock off all of that Cuddle dust. So the idea really isn't necessarily to do anything with the water except to give it a little bit of weight on the washcloth. The other is it will keep the static down. So if you do this in a dryer without a wet washcloth, you will end up getting staticky sticking to the sides of your dryer. And we've definitely had that happen. It creates a faux dimple that you don't really want because it will stick to the air vents in your dryer. So make sure that you've got a wet washcloth in there to tumble it around. So great question, thank you. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to pin it well when we're sewing with it, or when we're getting ready to sew with it. When I sew most other things, I want to pin perpendicular to the raw edge, and that tends to be how we pin most everything when I work with sewists. And when we're working with Cuddle, we parallel pin for almost everything except for stuffed animals, and stuffed animals have their own completely unique way of pinning. But for most everything else, we're going to pin parallel to the raw edge. So I'm going to show you how we do that and why we do it. So when I am sewing, I'm going to get my naps to go the same direction because that's important when we're working with it. Unless we're doing a strip quilt, and then it's going to go opposite. Actually, I think I might show that just so you guys can see. So I'm going to switch it so we have two different colors. That'll make it a little easier to see on there, I think. Okay, so these are going the same direction. So if this were, say, a strip quilt or something like that, I would flip this over and pin it. All right. If they're two different, the naps are going two different directions, they'll want to kind of fight each other here, and they won't necessarily stick together as well as I want them to. So one of the things that we want to do when we're pinning, we're apt to do, is to pin it perpendicular to the edge, which means just straight in from the edge. So already look at this. Can you see how far it came off just from me setting it down? Like, this is how much it's worked itself. So I put it even, and then it works itself over. See that? So you end up kind of fighting it a little bit. So I like to pin my ends first. But if I pin like this, you can see in between I have to kind of fight this back. Okay, and it will kind of like loop between the pins. So what I do is I pin the other direction. Okay, and I'm going to pin parallel to the raw edge. So once I've got that pinned, it doesn't loop anywhere in between. It's going to stay really nice. Now if I sew along this, I'm going to show the audience here really quick. So I've just pinned it just like this, okay? So now if I am going to take these pins out as I sew, all of a sudden it has all sorts of flexibility. And if you've worked with Cuddle before, it'll start to push. And then you take the next pin out and it pushes more and more and more. It's super duper frustrating. So we figured out a different way of doing it. So I pin it parallel, and then I'm going to come back over and I'm going to pin one more row. I kind of push that back with my fingers, make sure the edge is even. Okay, and then I'm going to pin a second row. So now, as I'm sewing and I'm going to take this first row out, this second row stays in position, and I can't get it to shove, hardly at all. Okay, so it really holds the fabric very stable when I'm working with it and makes a big difference. So that second row makes a big difference. There was something recently, oh, somebody said that they sewed Luxe Cuddle Milan and they actually did 3 rows of pinning for that to keep it in check. So yeah, that one has its own elastic in it, so it gets a little bit crazier. But double pinning makes a big, big difference. And if you're making strip quilts or anything like that, when we do the self-binding blanket, all sorts of projects, we use that double pinning technique. So if you have struggled with it kind of getting away from you, that's the way that you do that, is use the double pins, and it will help. The other thing is if it starts to push on you, you need to stop and reset it. We'll talk about a couple other things that help that push from not happening. Okay, so double pinning, lengthen your stitch length. So when you're sewing with cotton, you're generally going to sew with a 2 stitch length or maybe a 2.5. When you're working with Cuddle, you want to make sure that you lengthen that stitch so that you get more that feeds through your machine faster. It won't actually stitch it at a 2 stitch length. If you put it Cuddle at a 2, it'll do it more like at a 1.6, which is terrible to take out. So lengthen your stitch. It gets it through faster, and it's easier to take out if you make a mistake, which happens to all of us, okay? So you want to lengthen your stitch. So I'm going to do that on this machine. So Hawk, do you want to come around and we'll we'll show how to do that really quick on this machine. So I'm sewing on a Bernina. That's what they've got here at the shop. And I've got one at home. So this is the stitch length, okay? Generally, it's going to be set at a 2.5. That's pretty universal for a, what do you call that? The one that's the automatic one. There's a word for it. The default, thank you. For the default is usually going to be 2.5. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, but I want to switch that, so I need to come over here. I'm going to try to reach around. And I'm going to make this come up to a 3 or a 3.5. And I'm going to move it to a 3.5 because it's generally where I like to start, just in case, okay? And that's really important, is you're going to up this. And it seems like now you're going to be stitching almost a basting stitch, but it actually works much better, okay? The machines that I usually start at a 3, 3.5, see how it's working, and then we'll adjust from there. The other thing that you could adjust is the presser foot pressure, which we have over here. Let's see if we can make it work like we did in the other machine. I'm going to put this fabric under here. We'll have its green Cuddle dust. It's pretty funny, okay? And this is holding on really nice and tight. Should be that if I do this and I adjust this, it will get much lighter. Let's see if I can, yeah. So that was the difference. Whoops, and then I dropped it down. Okay, so this is the presser foot pressure. And so all Bernina, not all Berninas, we talked about this. Most of the, what did you tell me, Roxanne, the 3 and 400s?
4 series on up.
The 4 series on up will be here. Okay, and then there are some that I think that are in the screen somewhere. But that's the difference. So that's what the presser foot does, okay? So the presser foot, if it's lighter, so this is way light, I probably have it here, I should be able to kind of tug it, okay? The tighter it gets, the more I can't move it at all. All right, so if it's less, it'll work through better. So lighten your presser foot pressure. You can usually find that on old machines. It'll be a little knob up at the top. There'll be like a little screw that's back here. Trying to think, like some of them will be in the settings, some of them are here, and some will be like a little dial on the top. So make sure you find that in your machine and adjust the presser foot so it's a little bit lighter. All right. Okay, so lengthen your stitch length, lower your presser foot pressure. The other thing is to use a 90/14 stretch needle. So we're gonna take this guy out because I don't know what this one is. We want to use the 90/14 stretch. So I always use these. They're from Schmetz, and they're my favorites. So they just have worked really well in all the machines that I've used them in. So I continue to use them. Okay. So one of the cool things about Schmetz is that they have these little lines on there. See if we can show that. So in a 90/14 stretch needle will be a blue and yellow line. So they do this really funky thing where they have this color coding on their needles. See if we can see that. It's in there somewhere. There it is. Cool. Okay. This color coding is a lot easier to understand than the little tiny, tiny writing that's on the needle, because my eyes cannot see that. So the color coding is much better. So I'm going to go ahead and stick my needle up there, and then the flat side to the back, because that's the way these go. And then we're going to try to rethread this. Good luck. Okay. So I am rethreading this with thread I don't want to use. But I'll explain why in a minute. Oh gosh. Does this have an automatic threader that I don't know how to use?
It does.
Somebody come help me with the automatic threader. I don't have my reading glasses. I can't see anything. Oh, look at that. Just to the rescue. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that was great. All right, so 90/14 stretch needle is important. The other thing to remember about using, we can't see it because needles are teeny tiny. This is not the stretch. I bet it's a universal because that tends to be what we use. There is a difference. Oh, you can see the scarf really well there. Okay, so the scarf is like the cutout part of the back of the needle, and the way that they do it for a stretch needle is different than the way they do it for a universal. The end of the needle is different. Okay, it's more pointy in a universal. Microtex gets even pointier. A stretch needle has more round at the end, and a ballpoint is even rounder at the end. So you want to use a needle that has a little bit of round so that it will go through the knit of the fabric and not actually pierce any of the fibers. Okay, so that's really important. So 90/14 stretch needle. If you can't find a stretch, a ballpoint or a jersey will work as well. All right, so walking foot. So we're going to get this machine all set up to be able to sew. I'm kind of excited. Okay, so this is a walking foot. See if we can get this out in the light so you can see it. So this is the one that's specially made, obviously, for the Bernina, and it is going to fit up over the little bit that's in here. Okay, so let's see if we can see underneath. Get some light in there. Shed some light on this subject. Okay, you see the little point that's under there? Oh yeah, there it is. That little guy right there. That's what this fits under. Most other walking feet will come around the shank that comes down and then will get screwed on. Okay, this one does not. They will all have this little fork, for lack of a better word, that goes, the little arm will go over the needle screw. So we're going to try to do this without being too obnoxious in the camera. Okay, try to get that over, under. Oh, sorry, have to be obnoxious. Okay. It's like it's such a little space. Okay, so now we've got it over there. So the fork is up here on the needle screw, and this is secured on here. So on here it has like a little bar for Bernina. As I push down, it gets it on there really nice and secure. So make sure it pushes all the way in. Okay, if you're using a screw, you want to make sure that you screw it all the way in. One of the things about using walking feet is as you use it, sometimes it'll work the screw loose, and then all of a sudden your walking foot is a little wobbly. Doesn't happen the way that they come onto Berninas, but on other ones it will. Okay, so this is a walking foot. The way that it works, let me see if I can get this to sort of do its thing, is it's going to pick up and it's going to push forward. Okay, so you can see how the foot comes up. Okay, and as it's going to move the fabric as we go. And I'll show you when I get some fabric in there. But this, the way that it comes up off the fabric, is actually the important part. Because when we get the push forward, it's because we're using a normal foot and it wants to push. Okay, this isn't going to do that so much. All right, so use a walking foot, and we're going to sew with polyester thread. So I'm going to show you the difference. Yeah, you can stay over here. It'll totally work out great. I'm going to repin this really quick. I'll show you how to do that. Sew it with the pins. Okay, so when we're working with Cuddle, we always want to use a polyester thread. People often don't want to buy polyester thread because they already have lots of cotton. And I will tell you, you want to. Okay, I'm going to show you why. All right, so we're going to sew this. We've got it at a 3.5 stitch length. I don't know exactly where my presser foot pressure is, but we're going to see when I sew it. Okay, and I'm just going to sew right along here at about 1/2 inch. And this thread, I did this with cotton, and then we're going to do it with poly too. Okay, because the fabric, oops, I got a pin too early. Dang it. Okay, I'm just going to stitch all the rest of the way, hold that in place, use my little scissors. Okay, and then we're going to do it again. So this one is with, maybe I should just do it on the same fabric, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one is the cotton thread. We're going to remember that. And then we're just go, because you're going to need to help me thread it again. Help, I can't see it. They told me these contacts would help. Look at how good she is. Oh, shoot, where's the bobbin? I had a bobbin that was supposed to be poly. Would you see if there is one that I can throw in here? Probably most of the embroidery threads are.
Like a pit stop at a race car.
I know. She was good.
We got a whole team.
That was great. I mean, if we have to, we can, you know, put up our other little spoolie thing and wind a new bobbin.
Yeah. Do you have a?
I know I do. I mean.
Do you have an open spool?
I know I do. I just have to find it. Okay. Look at how good she is. She's not afraid of rethreading the machine. I'm like, do everything I can not to rethread it. All right. You're so good. Thanks, Jess. I don't know, because it wants to harass you.
It does.
Yeah.
Why
Okay,
not?
that's plenty.
Why not today? Right?
Bink, bam, boop. Ah.
Okay, there's that.
It
You
is.
do
It
that
is
one.
totally like the racetrack. This is great. Okay, and I put this in. So can you see me? So this is the cool thing about Bernina ones is that you can, like the newer ones, have these little metal bits that I just put this inside here, and I know I can't put it in backwards.
Is it a magnet? Or?
I don't know. Is it a magnet in
no,
there?
it's not magnetized. It just only goes in one
But it just
way.
only goes in one way, which is great. Because, like, they go in differently in different machines. Let's see if I can get it. Bink. There we go. Put that over there. Put the lid up. I couldn't cut it right because I'm not as practiced as Jess. Jeez Louise. All right. I feel very incompetent now.
Oh, shush.
All right. At least I can thread this part. That's great. All right. So let me finish pinning over here. So again, I'm going to do the whole double pinning thing. Try to remember to take them out in the right order this time. And then we're going to throw this one, or we're going to sew it with poly for both the top and the bobbin. So that's really important, is that if you switch one, you need to switch both of them. So don't try to cheat and just change one. Okay. So we're going to do this. So same 3.5 stitch length. I'm going to take the pins out before I hit them. Okay. We're just going to go all the way across and cut it. So when I have it with the poly, I can stretch it pretty good. It's not going to do anything, okay? So this is important when you're working with throws or the strip quilts or anything like that that are going to get stressed, because most of your seams are going to get stressed, especially if you give it to a kid. If I use the cotton, I can pull it the same way. And there it popped all those stitches. Okay? So super important, okay? Because I can pull the polyester pretty darn good and nothing's going to happen, okay? So really important, invest that $4 in the polyester thread. Is that about what it is? $3-4, I think, for a spool of polyester thread. It's really cheap and it will actually save it so you don't have to hand stitch things closed later because they broke, okay? Super important, all right? Okay, basting spray. So basting spray is one of my favorite things to be able to use when you're using Cuddle for strip quilts. Okay, it makes a huge difference in getting the fabric to lay flat. So when we're doing something, I'm going to sew these together. No, I can't do it on there. Let me see. Let me take all that cotton thread out. Okay. Oh, it's going to be a knot up there, isn't it? There we go. Look, it'll just keep breaking on me. It's great. A few times that you want that. This would be one of them. Just come out, little cotton thread. Okay. So what I want to do is, if I were putting this together into a strip quilt, when I sew this, I'll take out that knot with my scissors here. Bink. Okay, so when this is sewn, if this were put on the back and we were going to do like a strip quilt, this would be sewn through. When I push this over, here's a good example. Do you see the little, so come around the other side and you can see the little hump that's on this side. Okay, do you see that, how this comes over? And it's because it's a knit fabric and it's plush, it's not going to lay down flat. So you can't take it to the iron and just press this down. I could press it real hard and it's just going to pop right back up. Okay, it's because it's a knit fabric and it does that. So if I want to, I can go ahead and I'm going to spray it because it's mine and it's my cutting mat. Normally you would put stuff. Oh, I have plastic just in case. I forgot, I did prep that. It's just a plastic bag from my shopping. Whatever works, right? Okay, so I would use something to cover my board. This is going to be, do you see this? What is this? Okay, now I'm going to try again. Is there a way, Hawk? Do you know if I have to put it on a certain way?
Just not pointed at your face.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to spray that behind. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to push this up. And I can get it to stay nice and flat. Okay, so now it's going to stay flat here. You can see it gets a much crisper edge on here. It's not going to roll quite as much, okay, or at all. All right, so that's really important. That also works super duper well if we're going to do a blanket. So if you're going to do, say, like a So Simple blanket or something where you're going to put two sides together, the hooded towel is another great example of that, where you're going to put two sides together and you want them to be the exact same size. What I like to do is I like to put them together like this, and then I take them with my handy dandy ruler that is way too large for this experiment. We're going to do it anyway. Okay, I could take this. And now I'm just going to cut it to the size that I want. And it's going to be perfectly even. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut all the way around. Those pieces are stuck together. And then as I work through this, it's just going to act as one piece. because that spray base holds it together really nicely. All right, you want to make sure that you're not using too much. And I really love the O'Deef brand. So that's what this is. This is the O'Deef 505 spray. It's really excellent. It doesn't smell a bunch. It doesn't get too sticky.
It doesn't smell at all.
It doesn't smell at all, truthfully. I love this stuff.
Right next to it, I can't smell it.
Right, and it washes out really well. So it says on the package, I'll be honest with you, it says on the package that you have to dry clean it to get it out. And I think that that's to get all of the sticky out, period, ever, to get all the chemicals out. I use a big sheet that I use for all of my classes when we're doing like the strip quilt and stuff, and we spray it and we spray it and we use it for all the classes, then I take it home and I wash it. And all that sticky comes out and I use that same sheet over and over and over again. So for me, the sticky comes right out in the wash. If you get it on your mat, you just want to use some warm water and some soap, and you're going to be able to get it right off your mat. Okay, did I see a question somewhere? No? Okay. To make sure I wasn't missing somebody. All right, so I'm going to put that back. So that comes in a couple of different sizes. So this is, I think you guys have both of these sizes. So this is the one, my little travel companion. This guy is big. This one will usually do 2 big quilts. Okay, so just if you're looking for how much am I going to get out of it, 2 of the big quilts you'll get out of this. So lots of small projects. Okay, totally useful. All right, last one. That was number 9. So this is 10. 10 is to wash it the right way. So Cuddle is like I said, it's a high quality Minky fabric, and we work really hard to have that quality. You just want to wash it the right way so it keeps that quality. So it is completely machine washable and machine dryable. You just want to do it right, which means use cool water, a low heat dryer, and do not use any fabric softeners at all. That includes dryer sheets. So make sure you're not using any laundry soap that has fabric softeners in it, because sometimes they do. So you need to make sure and check with that. And then don't throw any dryer sheets in there. If you should wash it the wrong way and throw some fabric softener in there by accident, or somebody else did that for you, you can rewash it with vinegar in it. And some people like to wash it with vinegar in it all the time. So you just throw vinegar in with the wash. It helps to cut the oils and stuff, and that's what happens with the fabric softeners, is the oils stick to the fibers of the fabric and can cause it to look not as nice. So it will feel soft, but it won't look as good. So make sure that you're washing it appropriately and don't over dry it. So one of the things that I recommend is that you're going to dry it for about 20 minutes or half an hour, and then you're going to take it out and let it completely dry on its own, air dry it, then throw it back into your dryer on the fluff cycle, which will just kind of bounce it around a bunch and bring back all of that yummy softness to it. So it's really, it will wear forever. It's one of the things we really like about it. It's what makes it great for kids' blankets and for kids' quilts. It's great for binding in that way on kids' quilts because it has durability that will last forever, and it's super soft, and they love to rub it on their face. So it's awesome. So just take care of it, and it will work really well. So those are the tips. I'm going to go over them again really quick. You ready? I have to get my paper, my cheat sheet. Okay, so number 1 is to mark it before you cut it. Number 2 is to cut it the right way. So when you're using, sorry, we'll do it again. Mark it before you cut it. Use a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen. You can use the Crayola water-soluble stuff. You can use the friction pen, anything that you want. I don't like anything that has too fine up a point because it gets stuck in the knit, okay? So number 2 is to cut it the right way. So you're going to cut Lux Cuddle with the blade or with scissors, and Cuddle 3 you can cut with a rotary cutter. Like I said, you can cut Lux Cuddle with a rotary cutter. Just know that it's going to make more of a mess, and you're going to definitely want to vacuum before you move it at all, okay? Number 3, get rid of the mess before you start to sew. So that can include that vacuum at the edge. Also includes the dryer trick, is what we like to call it, where you throw it in the dryer for a little bit with a wet washcloth. You say wet, like really like, you know, get it wet and then wring it out. So wet washcloth, let it tumble around, knock all that off. Then when you start to sew on your machine, you're not going to get all of that Cuddle dust into the bobbin case, which is really great because you want to clean your bobbin case out frequently anyway. It's really, really important. Yes, please. Yes, okay? It's not Cuddle only. Clean out your bobbin case and under your needle plate, okay? Make sure that you do that, but you won't add any real extra mess if you are actually cleaning the fabric beforehand, okay? Double pinning makes a huge difference in being able to keep that fabric where you want it when you're sewing it. So don't let it get away from you, and double pin before you start sewing, okay? And make sure that you pin far enough where you don't have to take your pins out. Lengthen your stitch length to at least a 3 or a 3.5. If it isn't working very well, you can up your stitch length and then you can lower your presser foot pressure. And that should help so it doesn't push forward so much as it's working through your fabric. Okay. The other thing is use a 90-14 stretch needle because it is a knit fabric. We want to use the needle that is appropriate for that fabric. Use a walking foot, will help feed it through very nicely. There are even feed aspects of different machines as well. And I would still recommend a walking foot on top or in lieu of that. It's just a different mechanism that the walking foot works a little bit better with the Cuddle fabrics. Okay, always sew it with a polyester thread. As we saw, makes a huge difference. That polyester thread works with the knit, the polyester really well, and the cotton does not as much. Okay, use basting spray. Recommend the 505. And use that for keeping your fabric in position when you can actually baste wrong sides together before you start to sew. That includes the Cuddle strip quilts where you're actually going to sew it. It's a quilt as you go technique, and then you baste it to keep it in position. And the last one is to wash it the right way. So make sure that you're washing it in a cool wash with a low heat dryer or no heat dryer if you can. Let it air dry as much as possible, and then use your dryer to fluff it up and make it nice and fluffy and soft. So it'll keep that way forever and ever. Well, maybe not forever, but for years and years, decades. Okay, it will work very well for you and keep your products or your projects really in top condition. So important to do it right from the beginning to the end, and then you'll have great things. So do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have a giveaway here afterward, and they may have a giveaway there too. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next week. We are in Negaunee, Michigan this Saturday at Time Flies Quilt and Sew, and next week we are at Blue Bar Quilts in Madison. I think it's right outside of Madison. Like, I can't remember the name of the town right now. Thanks. It's close to Madison. I can't remember the state now. This is how many states we've been. Wisconsin? Help me.
Iowa.
We're on week 3. There are so many coming, okay? Blue Bar. Just look it up. Blue Bar Quilts. That's where we're going to be next week. And we'll be doing the Lullaby Cuddle Quilt. So if you are interested in doing a strip quilt, we're going to talk all about how to do a strip quilt and how to do the little applique on it. It's going to be super fun. So until then, happy sewing. Bye.